We had about 24 surges since last year, over 200 day and night shutdowns. A day of surge is equivalent to a quarter year of regular maintenance work. So for these 24 surges, just 14 months of work, that's equivalent to about 4 decades of maintenance work we have deferred in the past. So it's really monumental if you think about it.
Welcome back to Spilling the Tea, the podcast where we explore the inner workings of the MBTA, tackle your burning questions, and talk to the people driving change at the T. I'm your host, Andrew Cassidy of the MBTA's Customer and Employee Experience Department. And today we're thrilled to have Sam Zhou, the MBTA's Chief Engineer and Assistant General Manager for Engineering and Capital. Sam brings over 30 years of experience in transportation project development and asset management and has been instrumental in spearheading the MBTA's ambitious Track Improvement Program. This initiative, which began in 2023, eliminated system-wide speed restrictions to deliver a faster, more reliable experience for our riders. Today, we'll dive into how this massive undertaking has been accomplished in such a short amount of time, the innovative approaches that set this project apart from past efforts, and the MBTA's plan to maintain these improvements long into the future. Sam, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for the invite.
You currently hold 2 titles here at the MBTA.
That's correct.
You're Assistant General Manager for Engineering and Capital, as well as the Chief Engineer. Can you tell us what those titles and roles entail?
Shortly after the GM joined MBTA, I got a call from the GM, Philip N., asked me if I'm willing to join him to oversee the engineering and the capital responsibility. So my current job is essentially overseeing the engineering and capital delivery of the department. Obviously, engineering has a very wide range of responsibilities, vehicle engineering to infrastructure engineering to planning and also asset management. So it's a wide range of that. Then capital delivery, that's pretty obvious. Any capital projects. We have 2 delivery units, capital and delivery, and also the integrated transit program. Integrated transit program is focused on the transit side, and the rest of the infrastructure delivery is under capital delivery.
Before you actually did make your way here to Boston to work with the MBTA, you've had a fairly impressive career. You bring about 30 years of experience in the sector. And prior to here, you were over with the New York State Department of Transportation. How do you think that background over in New York helped prepare you for the challenges you're taking on today here with the MBTA?
I have over 3 decades of professional experience with a transportation agency. It's a wide range of experience. I started as a designer and gradually rise to the level of chief operating officer level, overseeing all the statewide operations and capital program delivery. So that definitely prepared me well for this position. I have to admit, my background is I'm a licensed professional engineer in civil engineering. I have limited experience in track work. I have handled a few track contracts, but very limited exposure to many other disciplines that we are having here, such as signals, such as power. Never done it before. But what's good about my past experiences, it really prepared me to handling all sorts of capital projects. That is really my strength. I have handled small to big mega projects before I came here. And that really prepared me well to come here and look at some of the ways how we conduct business in terms of delivering capital project. The most basic rule of thumb for delivering capital project is you deliver projects on time and within budget. So the principles always stay the same. It doesn't matter which state, it doesn't matter which agency, it doesn't matter if it's private sector or public sector. The goal as a project deliverer is to deliver projects on time and on budget.
interesting because, as you said, that's such like the foundational philosophy. And despite your having limited experience with the public transportation, as far as, rail and the like, you'd never know. I mean, we're sitting here today, end of track improvement program, all that's been accomplished in a system that truthfully people stopped believing in. And someone who had that limited experience, but again, so much other world experience, has been able to really deliver and kind of help champion the MBTA to a whole new kind of level. So with that being said, when you got that call from Phil, when he said, hey, do you want to come to Boston? What was your motivation to come here to Boston? Knowing all the troubles that the MBTA was in, you knew what you were in for. You knew what the state of the MBTA was in that moment. What made you say yes? And, and what does it feel like to take on a system as historic, but also complex as the MBTA?
So I don't want to sound cliche, but it is actually the public service and also the challenge that motivate me to come here. I had 30 years of career in the public sector, and I have seen how my work has affected the general public, affect my family even. So this is really the motive.
That's amazing. It's so interesting. I feel like I've said this before, but that is such a common thread among the other leaders that we've spoken to here at the MBTA. It is that call to service. It is that drive to want to use your field of experience and expertise to make a positive impact on so many people's lives. And again, something like public transportation or just transportation as a whole, it touches so many people. More than I think realized, because there's the people who actually use the system, and then there are people who may not use the system but still benefit from it. So all that work that you do really directly impacts a pretty decent percentage of the population, which is incredible.
Indeed, I definitely say that I found the most rewarding experience is surge after surge when I read those social media feedback from the writers, from the general public, and how the general public opinions about the T has changed over the course of just a short year. It really motivated me and give me this, career satisfaction, shall we say.
It's definitely not going unnoticed. And it is always great to have those moments where at the end of a diversion, and obviously our riders might be temporarily inconvenienced during that time, but to have them hop back on the train and then say, hey, I'm getting to work too early now. I remember there was somebody saying that, I think it was the Red Line, they were so used to it taking so long, they ended up missing their stop because they had already gone past it. So it's those real world testimonials that really kind of help, I guess, motivate and prove better than anything that we can say that things are improving.
Absolutely.
So all of that's compartmentalized within the track improvement program. You come in, you said September 2023, track improvement program is going out into the world, I believe November, or at least was announced November 2023. So that's a fairly short window
November
to
3rd.
Come up with a solution that truthfully others might not have been able to solve. Can you tell me a little bit about what the track improvement program is and really how it came into being? How did you and others come up with a plan? And here we are at the end of it, a successful plan, one that was actually, you didn't bite off more than you could chew. Tell me a little bit about that whole process from, hey, we have a problem to here's the track improvement program and here's how it's going to work.
So shortly after I got here, the reality hit me, right? At that time, we still have a lot of criticism in the public eye about the slow zones, speed restrictions that riddled in our system. I still read something that at the peak of the worst condition, we had 243 speed restrictions. That was that summer 2023. And shortly after that, I know this definitely got the GM's attention, even the governor's attention, and the leadership made it very clear we need to have a plan to address these speed restrictions. And shortly after that, the GM gave me the marching order, gave my teams the marching order that we need to eliminate all speed restrictions by the end of 2024. And obviously, my team, under that time, it was capital transformation. The team get to work, put a very solid plan together, and that plan actually being refined as we go. Now, obviously, in order to deliver such an aggressive schedule and such a daunting task, you need people to do it. So I always say this, it takes a village to do this monumental task. So it's not just the capital folks, it's not just the engineering, it's also operations, safeties, and the contractors.
Yep.
So for me, my job is put the team together and also put the contractor together, making sure that we have the resource to deliver it. And as we go, we learn more and more how we can do it more efficiently, safer, and actually more productively.
So you kind of alluded to this already, but the track improvement program, it involves managing a whole bunch of different teams, contractors, also just managing stakeholders and all the different parts of the subway, different communities that we serve in. How does the MBTA ensure quality control when something that is so fast paced? How is it that we're able to make sure that we're doing work that is, done to your specifications, but also something that sticks to make sure that, future maintenance isn't necessary immediately thereafter? Because, we're talking about something that is, fairly monumental, very ambitious, let's say that, with the track improvement program. So how do you make sure that when you're moving this quickly and you're making this amount of effort and work, how do you make sure that actually the work is getting done and that it's the quality that you expect and need?
So first of all, I like to mention some of the stats, which I'm always very, very proud of. We had about 24 surges since last year. I think precisely it's 26 surges. And among those, we have over 200 day and nights shutdowns. And the amount of the productivity we got out of these single day of work is just phenomenal. And based on the equipment use, based on the resources we put in, a day of surge is equivalent to a quarter year of regular maintenance work in the past. So for these 24 surges or just 14 months of work, that's equivalent to about 4 decades of maintenance work we have deferred in the past. So it's really monumental if you think about it. We actually wiped out all the speed restrictions in such a short period, 14 months. And some of the lines, such as Red Line, we only have limited records, but it shows that we haven't had such restriction-free Red Line for 21 years at least. So it is phenomenal. It takes a lot of effort to do this, but also did it safely. Because we have a rigorous process implemented, and these processes are continue to be improved as we have more surges in the year. For example, the contract requires contractors to have their own QC on site. Every site, you have to have QCs. And
that's quality control?
That's quality control. And also we have our MBTA team and our consultant do quality assurance. And the difference is quality assurance is we are making sure the quality control is done in the field. The contract also requires contractors to have their own safety personnel on site for every single surge. And in the meantime, we have our own safety representatives at every site, making sure work is being done safely. Not only that, every time we have unsafe practice, aka we have number of derailments, every time we have that derailment, these are the vehicles wheel popping out. Okay. Yeah. Rest assured, these are not the derailment we're thinking about.
Yeah. Not in service subway vehicles. These are like high rail vehicles and construction equipment.
That's correct. But we taking those cases seriously. Every time we have that, work is being stopped, safety folks come over, examine the condition, And lesson learned from each of these incidents. And we have, continuous improvements in terms of processes put in place, making sure such derailment or such unsafe conditions will be prevented for the future work.
I like the notion of that kind of multi-layered approach where you have someone making sure that things have been done to your quality, but then you assure that that quality is met. And that way you have that confidence that the work is done properly and that it'll stick and that you can actually move on to the next thing. And again, to have these added layers of protection while simultaneously getting 40 years of work done in 14 months, I mean, it's incredible. What else on, I guess, the construction side, what innovations or what have you are you really bringing to the table? I think back, not too long ago, we had the orange line surge of 2022. We all thought that was like, taking an entire line out of commission for an entire month. And I think we ended up doing something around like 6,000 or 7,000 feet of rail. Fast forward to this year, and we're talking about the Braintree branch. I believe it was around 70,000 feet of rail in 24 days versus, again, I think 6,000 in 30. So you got to be doing something a little different.
We are doing business differently from multiple angles. First of all, start from the contracts. We put out these TIP contracts, track improvement program contracts, at the beginning of the surge. And what's different this time is it's competitively bid. So we have very competitive price. We invited some of the contractors from outside this area. I want to make sure we have competitive bids for these contracts. For each surge, I want to make sure we have at least 2 up to 5 contractors working simultaneously, because when you shut down a section of the rail, I want to make sure every minute and every piece of real estate being utilized. For the core track work, that's a major difference from what we are doing right now versus what we've done in the past. In the past, we typically have one contract, and we are even not sure they have the bandwidth or manpower to do 24/7 every single day. Now we have 2 to 4 to 5 contractors working simultaneously, and you are essentially chop the work into smaller pieces, and the production rate is going through the roof. And I'll give you another example. You just mentioned about Braintree versus the orange line. We've seen that we have productivity output is at least 6 to 11 times more than we have seen in the past.
Wow.
Yes.
6 to 11 times. That's not a small amount.
That's correct. We see the same kind of a result comparing the Blue Line surge versus the Blue Line surge 2.5 years ago. We see very similar result. And that's because, we're making sure we have adequate resources on the track and get the work done in a safely manner.
That's absolutely incredible. So the balancing act for the MBTA as a whole is obviously doing this work, delivering the service and system that our riders deserve, but also manage as best as we can how disruptive these are to our riders. I guess what sort of steps and processes have been put in place to kind of be mindful of the work that needs to get done, whether it be in the scheduling or just kind of working with local municipalities? How do you collaborate with the rest of the MBTA to make sure it's not too burdensome for our riders?
Yeah, it takes a whole village to do these surges. So I would give a lot of credit to many other departments who actually supporting the surges. One example is before any surge start, we'll go out, meet with the local communities. We also set up public information meetings, making sure the community knows what's in the pipeline, what the surge dates are, do a lot of outreach. In the meantime, they're also working with the sign shop, making these signs. We also flooded the media with messages, alerts. So that's all part of the game, making sure that the riders are fully informed. We always can do better.
It's a lot of different pieces. It's good that the MBTA takes the communication piece, to heart, whether it be through customer and employee experience, whether it be through our public engagement groups or even working with electeds and local municipalities. But even beyond that, I think I've seen it kind of as a snowball effect where maybe the first one or two, people might not have believed in the ability for us to accomplish work. But as you have one successful line after another successful line completed, I vividly remember after completing, I believe it was work on the red line, the orange line riders were clamoring to be next. People were begging for diversions, which again is a strange sentence to say out loud.
Absolutely. And the other thing I would add is when we plan for these surges, we also work very closely with City of Boston, preparing for the traffic management plan on the surface, making sure that we will minimize the impact to the not only the riders, but also the traveling public, the pedestrian, the bicyclists, and also the vehicular traffic. So that's also a very big component of our preparation plans.
So to successfully complete the track improvement program, obviously you had to work with all these different groups, all these different contractors. What is the thought process on potentially bringing some of that in-house and I guess kind of fortifying the MBTA with some added ability?
That's very much in my mind, how we can do better with the own workforce in the future, less reliant on our contractors. And this year, if you look at it, track improvement program in a nutshell amounts to $600 million. It's not cheap. And I believed in our own workforce. I believed in their capability to carry out the future maintenance work. It will take some time because we have a pretty young and less experienced workforce compared to the contractors, but they will build up. And that's exactly in the future years. We want to initially team up between the maintenance forces and the contractors, and gradually we will wind down dependence on the contractors and let the maintenance folks do their maintenance work. That's the goal.
So now with the track improvement program, big check mark, finally behind us, completed work, speed restrictions removed. The system map is looking the way it should on the speed restrictions board where, you're not seeing all the little triangles. You can actually see your stops. They're not hidden by all the different speed restrictions that are in place. It's one thing to do the work. It's another thing to have it stick. We talked about this with Doug Connett before, but how does the MBTA plan to maintain this improved track? And how do we ensure that we don't end up back in a state where all of a sudden you wake up one morning and the entire system's lit up and there are all these, speed restrictions? How do we know that we're going to stay on top of things?
So that's a great question. I'm sure the riders and our stakeholders also have very similar questions. Just recently, I noticed that the Boston Globe picked up a new speed restriction showed up on the Ashmount branch, and the questioning, well, we just did the work. Now the speed restriction showed up again. And it turned out that that's because the frigid cold weather break the rail, which we just installed. And that is common. That is part of what we do as our normal maintenance work.
Yep.
And thanks to the maintenance way department, they actually have a very rigorous process nowadays, monitoring the track conditions, making sure if there is a speed restriction popping up, they will address it immediately. And if you look at it, the day that we had the speed restriction, the day after, the speed restriction was removed. So thanks to the folks at the maintenance department doing such a great job keeping up with the system.
So with that example, we're talking about a cracked rail, which is just unfortunately a property of steel that can happen. And we're always on the lookout for when you have these, crazy temperature swings and things of that nature. But I remember it was also on the red line. It wasn't a cracked rail. And the first new speed restriction goes up on the dashboard and a lot of people are like, oh, same old MBTA. There it is. This is it. This is the beginning of the end. There were definitely some naysayers out there, but, lo and behold, by the next day, much like the example you gave with the cracked rail, it was gone. And I think that speaks to the proactive nature. And I would say even the cultural shift at the MBTA, where things are not being allowed to amass to some unmanageable level like they had in the past, where, again, you do have 243 speed restrictions. If you deal with them as they come in, then you can deliver, because we've used this example before, but speed restrictions are kind of like potholes are to the roads. They're going to happen, but it's more, whether or not you fill that pothole quickly or you let the road collapse. And it seems like we're in that kind of, once we get notification, let's get out there and fix it mentality. And, to your credit, I think you, Phil, and others have really kind of brought that mentality and approach to the MBTA.
Indeed, it is also a cultural shift, right? Not only we need to maintain the system, but also the speed restriction is really a result of the condition of our infrastructure. So in order to keep up with the condition, we not only need to maintain it, but also we need to continue to have a rigorous capital program, making sure that we are taking care of the system. So this is where the collaboration comes in. This is exactly why next year we also have a very robust, I call it, infrastructure preservation plan. This is a combination of maintenance and capital program, making sure that we keep our infrastructure, particularly on this case is track, in a state of good repair. So we're not going to have these speed restrictions keep popping up. And even if it came up, we will address it immediately.
That's good to hear. And again, I think it helps build in some belief and some faith in the MBTA doing the right thing, which is really helpful. I guess on a similar note, as far as doing the right thing, back when all of these speed restrictions first popped up, to its credit, the MBTA decided to take a move towards transparency. It developed the speed restriction dashboard, which when it first launched was obviously a bit jarring and shocking to see so many on the system. What do you think the effect of that transparency and the dashboard, what do you think that effect was on our riders? How do you think it felt for them kind of watching in real time the MBTA's efforts to remove these?
I think that will build a confidence in MBTA. I believe in transparency to the general public that we serve. Transparency will build the trust and allow us to work closely with the public. And we have seen in the last just a short year that we are able to regain the trust from the public and from the electeds, who are really the power behind all the fundings, enabling us to do the work that we need to do to maintain the system.
So understandably, at the beginning of the track improvement program, people don't know you yet. People don't know Phil yet. People don't know the new way of doing business at the MBTA. There was a lot of frustration surrounding these diversions. But as I mentioned earlier, people started seeing that there was real benefit. Obviously, first with the blue line, when that was the first line to be speed restriction free and stay that way. People said, hey, I want that on my line. I want you guys to come over here and, work your magic. And interestingly, we've been receiving so much positive rider feedback, which is a little bit of a shift from when I first started at the MBTA, that we started our own little campaign called Progress You Can Feel. And there's no sugarcoating anything. It's just taking actual rider quotes and really just highlighting this positive change. And with that change, with that belief, there is an excitement surrounding the MBTA. There's a belief. And as we're entering a new year with a system that is speed restriction free, having successfully completed the track improvement program, what do you think will be the perception of the MBTA in 2025? And what words of encouragement do you have for our riders for what's ahead?
So we still have business to do. We have a great year, great momentum. but we still have a lot of work to do. And I don't want to spill the bean that we are working on some very exciting projects, both capital and the maintenance work, that average rider will benefit. I'll give you one example. By the end of this year, we are going to raise the line speed between Braintree and JFK to 50 mile per hour line speed, increase from 40 to 50.
That's great.
People will benefit from that. There's another area that we are doing that on Orange Line, and I don't want to spill the bean. And we're actively working behind the scene to make that happen in 2025. Beyond that, we still have a lot of infrastructure projects that will benefit the public. And next year's focus will be the signal system, our power system, and also the stations. We have a lot of projects that will improve the station, improve ADA accessibility in the coming years. Infrastructure is not just track, signal, and power. Infrastructure also means the train you ride on. So the other exciting news is we're continuing to deliver better and more modern track vehicles. We continue to work with CRRC, getting those Orange Line and the Red Line vehicles. And starting 2026, we will be getting the new Type 10 Green Line vehicles. And obviously, with better vehicles, you have better operation results, a smooth ride. Riders will benefit from those new vehicles. So I'm very excited about continue working to improve our infrastructure and deliver good results, better results for our customer.
It's exciting. And it's nice because I remember, going back to that Braintree branch diversion, hearing Phil first say that, we were working on this 50 mile an hour to increase rail speed and, building that, excitement and the fact that, again, that it wasn't just an empty platitude. This is actually happening. And the fact that the MBTA is, again, looking for these different opportunities to provide riders with faster, more reliable and more enjoyable service as far as the stations go. And just for your knowledge, I know the riders very much appreciated your forthcomingness and information sharing that you did during that particular diversion. So thank you for that. And thank you for the work that you're doing, but also kind of keeping us all in the loop while you're doing it. Sam, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And with that, we come to the close of another episode of Spilling the Tea. A big thank you to Sam for coming on the show, and a congratulations on the successful completion of the track improvement program. I, as I'm sure our riders are too, am grateful for the long-awaited return of a slow zone-free system. To our listeners, we hope today's conversation gave you some insight into the work happening behind the scenes to make the T faster, safer, and more reliable for all of us. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you have any questions or ideas for future episodes, please reach out to us at social@mbta.com. We'd love incorporating your ideas into the show. Until next time, I'm Andrew Cassidy, and this has been Spilling the Tea.